So basically, my strategy with precepts is you just answer exactly the way they would answer, except your presupposition is different than theirs. You don't try to convince them otherwise on their presupposition. You just say, hey, you have yours, I have mine.
You saw that one, didn't you, Van?
I've seen you do it a couple times.
Right.
We've probably all seen it.
Yeah.
Precept Odin. And just use the God of wisdom as the reason for rational thought existing. It's a direct mirror of the presuppositionalist argument, except it just uses a different God.
Yeah, I've considered doing that, but I think the way I do it is a little more honest because I don't believe in Odin. So,
the way that I do it is completely honest because I do believe in Odin.
You do believe in Odin?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Does everyone here but me know why Ocean believes in Odin?
Because he's a pagan.
Go for it. Just go for it.
Ocean, why do you believe in Odin?
Because I do. Can you get it a little bit more specific than that?
I don't know anything about Odin, so I don't know how to ask you even a question.
Okay. Well, I'm a polytheist through a number of things. I left Christianity and then started looking at other religions because I wanted to explore spirituality. I thought that I didn't want to throw out spirituality with Christianity.
Okay.
You believe that there is a real deity named Odin?
Yes.
How sure are you of this?
I provisionally hold the position.
And why?
Until someone proves me wrong.
And why do you believe that?
It has to do with religious experiences that I had after leaving Christianity.
Okay, so you had
my thing with Christianity is like, okay, I'm having a spiritual experience involving this religion, but I think that there's probably something more to it. It doesn't seem, because this religion seems to be absurd. And also if I look at the religion, the structure of the all-powerful God sending his son, it just seems really
ludicrous.
Just not necessarily ludicrous, but unnecessary. I think that if I'm going to be worshiping a perfect God, he should at least be good at logistics. And I think that the God that Christians worship is really bad at logistics. Because
Ocean, can you give me a name of a deity that you don't believe in?
Yahweh.
Now, if someone has an amazing experience that leads them to believe that Yahweh is true and exists, would you say they're wrong?
I would say that they're believing a lying God.
So how do you know you're not that person? Believing in a lying God named Odin?
I don't.
And that's where it gets tricky.
You don't know.
Right.
It's really low-key.
So you're not so you're not that sure about it then?
Not as sure as you want me to be, I don't think. I said that I hold the position provisionally.
Okay. So why do you hold it at all? If could the person who has this amazing experience that led them to Yahweh, are they completely wrong?
I think they are, yeah.
So could you be completely wrong?
I think that there's philosophical problems with Christianity that don't appear in polytheism.
Do you think the person who believes in Yahweh sees the philosophical problems?
I think that they're missing out on it, yeah.
Why do you think they are missing? Why do you think they can't just see those problems that you can so easily see? I think that when you start asking them questions about it, they have a really hard time explaining how to get out of philosophical problems, like the problem of evil, the Earthflow dilemma, the problem of omnipotence. But they still believe it, and they still give you reasons.
Right? Yeah, you can be irrational. It's totally
so.
Possible.
If you and I can see the problems in Yahweh,
right?
They can't. Is it possible that for the same reasons that you see Odin as making sense and being coherent, that you're stuck in that kind of belief system, and me and the Yahweh guy can see the problems within your world belief? I don't know anything about yours.
If you want to talk about what the problems are in my belief system, that I'm open to it. We can have that conversation till the cows come home.
But let's say we do have that conversation till the cows come home, and you just still can't see the problems or inconsistencies within your belief in Odin, just the same way that guy with Yahweh can't see it.
Well, if we bring up a problem, we can probably have that conversation, but rarely does that happen.
But my point here, Ocean, is that I asked you if you were sure about Odin. You said, well, no, it's provisional, that you do have some doubts. But with the guy with Yahweh,
it's not even that I have doubts; it's that I couldn't prove it to you.
Right, but you
categorically have said that the guy who's had an experience that led him to Yahweh is completely wrong. You believe he's completely wrong.
Well, the experience isn't the only thing that's part of the conversation. There's also the description of the deity that you're believing in the first place. Is it coherent?
So, okay,
if you're believing
before we move
that
off,
has an incoherent description, then
before we
I
move
don't
off
think
experience, do you agree then that experience is not a reliable method to coming up with the truthfulness of Odin's existence?
I think that it's the only evidence that we can get.
Only evidence we can get, but you were just about to
If you can come up with another piece of evidence that you can get for a God that doesn't involve experiencing it, I'm open to your suggestions.
Okay, but all I'm getting at here is that if the experience is not reliable for the guy who believes in Yahweh, then it's not reliable for you. Would you agree with that?
If you're going to start trying to throw experience out of being...
I'm not throwing it out. I'm just saying it's not reliable.
Then nothing is reliable at that point. Because what evidence do you have that you don't experience?
No, I hear what you're saying, but everybody could go through the same experiences you did and arrive at a different conclusion.
I'm saying about anything. What evidence do you have about anything that you don't experience?
Oh, I'm not saying we don't take in all the data from experience. I'm not denying that. But here's the difference. Like, for example, the acceleration due to gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. You ask a Hindu scientist this, a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Christian, or a Jew, all around the world, they'll give you the same answer. Their experiences have all pointed to the same answer. But if we have experiences of spirituality, it seems like it points to different answers. So that tells me maybe we should, and you have admitted that you're somewhat...
Well, I think that there's different experiences because there's more than one God.
Right, but I'm just asking you about Odin right now.
There's only one God.
Yeah, I'm basically just saying that it seems like our experiences, regardless of the biases and culture we were raised in, there's certain experiences that point to the same conclusion, like the acceleration due to gravity at sea level, for example.
Right.
But it seems when it comes to gods, it's all over the map. So if we value this thing called truth and we want to know, okay, does this God Odin really, really exist or not?
Mm-hmm.
The only point I'm making is that it seems like
really?
Yeah, it seems to me like this experience that has led you to this belief in a deity doesn't seem reliable to me, because someone could have the exact same experience as you did and come to a different conclusion.
I think that if you have somebody who has a different spiritual experience with a different God, then they're just experiencing a different God.
But I'm talking about a God you say does not exist. And I'm asking you, how do you know you're not that person?
There might be an entity that represents itself as Yahweh, but I don't think that it's who he describes because of the philosophical issues with the claim.
Okay. And you have not found any philosophical problems within yours?
No.
Okay. And the person who believes in Yahweh hasn't found any philosophical problems in theirs?
I think a lot of Christians actually admit that there's like a difficulty to understand what the Trinity is without making it polytheism or making it break the law of identity.
I'm just talking about Yahweh. I'm not even talking about Jesus right now.
I think you're talking about the Christian God, right?
Well, we're sticking to Jews,
I'm talking about the Jewish God.
Oh, okay. Well, then in that case, the problem with omnipotence, people admit that it's a quagmire.
Yeah, I agree with you.
They don't have an answer to it.
Well, they say it's a mystery.
Right.
Yeah. Do you say there's no mysteries in your God?
When you get into questions about whether or not you can verify something empirically, I ask what you want to have verified. What is the claim that is made by the nature, like what a God is, that you would expect to find evidence empirically for? I don't think that there is anything. If you're looking for an entity that is able to be separate from this universe, what are you looking for?
So you've experienced something that's led you to this conclusion, and you don't find any philosophical problems with it.
Right.
Could it still be possible that Odin does not exist, even though you experienced something and you don't?
Yeah, it could be a hallucination. It could be a mental blip. There's other explanations you could proffer.
Okay.
Yeah, one very important thing to remember with Ocean is he holds the belief provisionally.
Right, and I appreciate that.
It's just from a philosophical sense. I live as if it's true, but if you're going to be getting into a philosophical discussion with me, then it has to be offered provisionally, because otherwise you're going to be having a discussion that doesn't make any sense. I'm not able to prove the position, and I know that I'm not able to prove the position.
Is there any markers with Odin in specific that if you would see something or learn something that you would change your mind? That you say, no, Odin is just as fake as Yahweh?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Is there something, like usually if I have a deeply held belief, take evolution, for example, there's certain things that scientists could find tomorrow that would totally, they'd say, you know what, we have to go back to the drawing board, like finding a rabbit fossil in the Precambrian layer. We have to go back to the drawing board. Is there anything like that where you would see something about Odin?
Falsify.
Yeah, to falsify, that you say, you know what, I could be wrong about Odin. Is there any markers like that?
I think it's pretty unfalsifiable. I don't know what you would be looking for.
Oh. I'm going to make my one and only assertion right now.
Okay.
Any belief that's unfalsifiable is not a belief worth having.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
All right.
Why do you?
Yeah. Why do you think that?
Well, because then you could make up anything and say, you could just start believing in the tooth fairy, or
You can.
yeah,
Doug, you can.
But in my opinion,
You're free.
Well, here, I guess I can answer your question a little bit. If there was, if you find something that makes the belief incoherent, then that would be a way of falsifying it.
Okay, I can appreciate that.
Because I think that if you're going to be going into theism in any way that is, makes any philosophical sense, you should at least approach it with coherentism, since foundationalism doesn't necessarily work.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer, but the thing that frightens me a little bit about that, though, is it seems like Muslims cannot see the inconsistencies and contradictions within the Quran. Christians cannot see the inconsistencies and contradictions within the Gospels. Jews cannot see the inconsistencies and contradictions within the Torah. It seems like everybody else can.
I disagree with that. I think that a lot of Christians can see the inconsistencies, but Christianity also comes packaged within it the idea that God is loftier than can be understood, or something like that. So they just can steamroll over any inconsistencies. They can see them, but they have it's in their scripture. They can steamroll over it.
Yeah,
it's not something that's
I've witnessed that firsthand.
Right. They just say, you start asking about the Trinity and something, and the Christian says, well, his ways are higher than ours. That kind of shit. And that's not a game I'm going to play.
Yeah, and I know nothing about Odin, so I don't even know. Usually the more nebulous the god, the less the less the detailed, the harder to find inconsistencies and incoherence.
Right. I mean, it's a fairly detailed god. There's all sorts of stories around him and so on. I tend to take a lot of the stories about him as parables, more or less. But, I mean, they're there.
And Doug, you bring up the idea of it not being worth having an unfalsifiable belief.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure people can find some worth.
That's when I get
some value.
As far as the Satya is concerned, utility is very powerful within it. It has all kinds of uses.
And I want to preface it, or not preface, but say that this applies to deeply held beliefs in particular. There's a lot of things we can believe. I believe my fantasy football team will win next week. Stuff like that. I'm not talking about trivial stuff. I'm talking about deeply held beliefs that really impact our lives on a day-to-day level. I still think that there should be
sure, but all those things aren't equal, right?
Yeah, but my main point is that I think there should be like little mileposts or markers in our life that would say, you know what, I'm willing to change my mind if I see this. And I think having that open mind and the willingness to change is
yeah, and that's
I would agree with you, Doug.
That I have that. I obviously changed to this position. I went through a different form of paganism before moving to this one, for example.
Yeah, Ocean, you don't sound like the proselytizing type, but could you please sell me on Odin for like 60 seconds? Why should I be a believer in Odin?
In Odin?
Odin, yeah, sorry.
Odin, yeah.
I was thinking the LA Laker.
As far as, if I'm going to try and sell you on kind of a cult of Odin sort of belief, I would say that just try to tell you what following Odin means, because it's not just believing in him, it's a responsibility. That Odin is the god of wisdom and is the wisest of gods, and he's an example that you should follow. So you should be pursuing wisdom voraciously, as well as being the best person that you can be.
And why would I need Odin to do this for me when I can do it myself?
I don't think that Odin cares whether or not you worship him in order to go into that pursuit.
But do you desire other people to believe as you do?
Culturally, sure. I'd love to have some camaraderie, but there's nothing beyond that.
Okay.
Saying that Odin doesn't care if you believe in him or not doesn't answer the question about why I should believe in him.
What do you mean?
Well, his question was, why should he believe in Odin?
Oh, he wanted me to sell it on him. So if there's going to be a way for me to sell him on him, I'm just going to tell him about him.
Oh.
He wasn't saying, why should I? He was asking,
he said, sell me on Odin.
I think it's implied in selling. It's like, if I'm selling something, why should you buy this vacuum cleaner? Well, because it's a great vacuum cleaner.
See, in my opinion, I'm selling him something he already has. So I'm not really selling it. I'm just like telling him about it.
Yeah, this was the point I was trying to get at, is it seems like with all religions, all the good stuff that comes out of different beliefs, deities, can be done in the atheistic world.
Yeah. You can totally do it in an atheistic world.
And it comes with less baggage, in my opinion. It doesn't sound like Odin has much baggage.
Because you don't have to accept a whole bunch of bad stuff.
But
there's other stuff that you would be accepting if you decided to accept Odin that might be considered bad.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, you would be accepting the rest of the pantheon, right? If you believe in Odin, you would be believing the stories around him, which means that there's other entities. You're a polytheist.
It's a package deal.
As a polytheist, yeah. If you're going to believe in more than one god, you can't believe in more than one god by believing in one god. So, the pantheon has all kinds of characters that are very interesting. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to worship all of them. You just believe that there are multiple entities.
Why?
Some of them you choose to follow as your example, and some of them you don't, or none of them. It doesn't necessarily matter.
Do you believe in the stories about Odin that place him on Earth?
I think that I look at the stories as parables. And those are more personal, obviously.
Do any of those things have relation to whether or not a belief is true?
Those two particularly, no. But it is a reason why I use them.
Well, the way this is a criticism is that what you're thinking as a deity spiritual world is actually completely material. The experiences that you're feeling can be explained atoms, electrons, neurons. But I have a question for Molly.
Wait a minute.
He's absorbing.
I'm attempting to kind of
I could be wrong about this, but a scientist could operate on your brain tomorrow, and you would no longer be a druid or a believer in Odin.
That's not true.
Let me read this article real quick, and we'll pick this up in a second, because I don't think that's true. I think that's an interpretation of what Brenda's saying, and I think that Brenda might be misinterpreting my criticism of it.
One thing that I will say is that even if we were to find a materialistic style explanation of spiritual experience, I don't think that we should talk about it as if that takes away meaning from those phenomena. I mean, of course, it might make us question whether or not we attribute the experiences to gods or things like that. But I think that as an atheist myself, I can still find meaning in those special experiences that I would otherwise get under a religious system. But would you have predicted that there would be a way to manipulate the brain such that you would have a spiritual experience?
I don't know.
Would you have predicted that, like on your sort of model of spirituality?
I'm trying to figure out how it would affect it. So, because this is something like, say, I'm sitting here and not knowing this information, and then you hand me this information. I'm trying to figure out how it would affect my belief system. I don't think that it does, ultimately. But I don't know. I wouldn't be able to use my belief system in order to predict that. I think that's asking something that asking something of the religion that is not necessarily designed nor supposed to do.
It's a hand when we need it.
Yeah, I understand that. You know, and a part of me is envious of you guys because I don't think I've experienced something as amazing as you guys have. And that makes me jealous. But I do value truth, and I don't want to believe something that just makes me feel good that could, you know, just be a figment of my imagination. I want to believe as many true things as possible, even if it's uncomfortable. And, you know, my life would be easier if I could believe in a spiritual realm in a lot of ways because of my family. But I need to have confidence that it's actually true.
Well, see, I've never had that moment myself, but the way I see it, I reckon they're there, fantastic. They don't have to prove themselves to me, and we're more rooted to nature and our surrounding. Everything's connected.
It's going to go back to the conversation in which Doug said that, like,
for example,
it's bad to believe things without a good reason, to which I responded, what is a good reason?
Yeah, and I'll give an example of what I think would be a good reason. And to put it bluntly, it would be that a good reason is one that has explanatory power. So I have a deeply held belief that when I let go of this pen, it will fall. And I can run the experiment. And I can do it. I don't want to have it fall on my keyboard, but I can do it over and over again. I would view that as, okay, I can get other people to do it all around the world and see if we get the same results. I would say, okay, seems like our predictions are coming true. And based on our hypothesis and what the results have been, our belief is probably based on something true. That when we let go of the pen here on planet Earth, it will fall.
You're talking about empiricism, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, that's definitely empiricism. So now the question is, now when it comes to, I don't even know how to say it, druidry or...
Druidry, yeah. Druidry or druidism.
Do you have a model about reality that is reproducible like that?
I don't think I derailed.
Let me try to frame it this way. Let's say, like, you gave me that website for druids, and I read a little bit of it, and it seemed very appealing. It talked about love and caring and wisdom and all these things. And let's say a few months from now, I say, yeah, I want to learn more. But I'm the type of guy who wants to believe true things as much as possible. So even though it can do so many great things for me and help me in my life and be a better father and so forth, I'm not going to sign on just because of those reasons, because I can do that.
Sign on.
Well,
don't sign on.
If you're looking for something that's empirical, then look for something that's empirical. Keep doing that.
Yeah.
Until you're able to find something that is that has utility for you.
But see, Doug, sorry.
When we're trying to
explain, I'm screwed. Like, let's say, because
no. I'm saying that between Lally, Molly, and I, something happened that has caused us to pursue something by a different level of standard than what you're doing, because there is an experience that offsets the lens that you're looking at things through. And
I understand that, but here's my question though. My question is, and again, we're talking about so many different things. Let's just pick druidry and whatever that means. it's either true or it's not. Would you agree with that?
Druidry is really amorphic. You might let's go with Odinism just because it's
okay.
Odin. Because I'll agree. Yeah, Odinism is either true or it's not.
Yeah.
Sure.
So then the question becomes, how do we figure out if it's true or if it's not?
You can't, and that's something that has to be it has to be accepted by somebody that's on this journey of trying to figure out what they believe in this sort of realm. Unless, because I think that some people come to spirituality with, I was raised in it, these are my traditions, and I have to uphold them, and that's the perspective a lot of Christians come to. Homosexuality is bad and all this other bullshit.
Like, I made it too dogmatic.
Barring some kind of example that, like, barring some kind of new discovery in which we're able to observe these things, which we're talking about very amorphically. No, if we're able to find that apparatus in which we're able to observe these things, and apply empiricism to them, great. That opens up a whole new world of things, and probably all of us will be proven wrong with something else. And I would love to be around for that experience to happen, simply because I want to know. But,
I think it's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ashton.
But right now we don't have that ability. That's it.
Okay. Now I'm going to give an example here, and I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it off Druidry. But let's say someone has a belief, and they answer the exact same way you just did, Ocean, that ultimately you can't figure out if it's true or not. But let's say someone has a belief. Let's say a 17-year-old girl has a belief that taking heroin every day is good for her. And she actually has this belief that there's a God telling her to take heroin every day. And you ask her, well, is this God true or not? Like, well, this God told me it's okay. Well, but is it true or not? Well, sorry, I can't, ultimately I can't tell you whether it's true or not, but this is what I believe. So I've given a very extreme example of how.
No, it's an extreme example, but it's not, okay.
But it's an example of how believing untrue things can be dangerous.
Right. Let's talk about human sacrifice for a second. I think that's akin to what you're talking about.
But what I'm getting, and I'm not saying Druidry is dangerous or Odin's dangerous, but I think the principle still holds that as much as possible, we should try to figure out if something is probably true, I'll put it that way, or probably false. And
I knew it. Ocean secretly conducts human sacrifice.
I do. Babies specifically, and I eat them afterwards.
I knew it. I knew it all this time.
I think that what you're talking about is akin to the concept of human sacrifice, where, you have somebody who's, the gods are telling them to do things that are harmful either to themselves or others, and that's kind of a quandary, where it kind of depends on the person who is observing it, what their value structure is as to whether or not they should intervene. Now, it could be that when you choose to intervene, that you're intervening on something that is reality. It's true. Maybe there is a God telling her to take heroin every day, and maybe there is a reason for it. Who knows? But the person who's observing it has their own value system to abide by. So do you intervene or do you not? And that's up to the individual that's observing the situation. Because we can't verify that her experience is true.
I think that kind of misses what the question was asking.
I mean, I'm answering it from a utilitarian perspective of what you should do in that situation. I don't know what are you asking that's different from that, Doug?
Well, I'm more making a point that, well, no, I'm asking the question, do you agree that sometimes believing things that cannot be verified, like this pen dropping, like giving the answer that you gave, that ultimately we cannot know if it's probably true or not, that in those cases that sometimes can be very harmful?
I think that if we want to take the religion that I hold, Odinism is harmful. There are aspects about it that are very violent, and I hold to those traditions. But it becomes I think it's up to the individual in the situation in which those kind of situations arise. Is it worth it? Is your belief worth causing harm to another person or yourself?
Oh,
and I think that's an option that is up to the individual.
That's an easy question for me to answer. Yeah, we chuck the virgins into the volcano. It's easy for me. It doesn't cause me any problem. Yeah, toss the virgin into the volcano.
Right, and then someone can stop you
There's no
from tossing the
problem for
virgin into
me.
the volcano.
There's no problem for me. I'm fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have an argument against that?
Against chucking virgins into a volcano?
Yeah.
Well, against the position that people make their own decisions and have their own moral systems. Are you a moral objectionist, or do you believe in objective morality, or what?
Yeah, I don't think that there are objective morals.
Okay, so what's your problem with throwing virgins into volcanoes?
I think that societies thrive better.
Okay, so that's your reason.
when they avoid doing things like that.
And somebody might say that the volcano god demands the goddamn virgins. So it's people are going to believe what they believe.
Maybe the virgins don't want to be thrown into volcanoes.
Well, that sucks for them, doesn't it?
Oh my. There's two ways we can go here. We can talk about morality, or we can talk about.
I think morality is where I was designing that to go towards morality.
Yeah,
I think we should still be talking about whether or not we care about whether or not we believe true things.
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten past that yet, because I
don't think so either.
I think if we care about things like human well-being and unnecessary suffering, and going back to my extreme example of the 17-year-old girl who thinks that God's telling her to take heroin every day, I think we need to talk about whether or not that's actually true, that this God is actually telling her to do it. And it's an important question. And if ultimately this young woman gives an answer you did, Ocean, that, well, ultimately I can't prove it to you, but I just believe this is true. Mm-hmm. I think there's an example of believing false things is very dangerous.
Okay.
I think that
Let's put it this way, Ocean. I don't know if you have kids. Do you have kids?
No. I have a little sister that's very young, though. So basically. So
let's imagine this girl is your sister. Okay. Would you and your sister said this to you, Ocean. God told me to take heroin. Would you intervene?
I have this is when you get into a situation in which you have countering messages from gods, which is something that pops up in pagan communities every once in a while. So according to my tradition, I have a charge to protect my family, and that includes from self-harm. So yes, I would be intervening, but it has to do with my convictions.
But
I would believe.
There's an assumption. Yeah, there's assumption.
Let's say that the God that right. But let's say that the God that she believes in is real, and I can accept that the God that she believes in is real, the one that's telling her to take heroin every day. I disagree with that God, and I don't have any interest in letting it succeed. So yes, I will intervene. If you want to look at it according to my belief system. So
he's not much of a God if he's telling people to harm themselves.
Right. That's kind of my opinion as well.
Okay. Now, Ocean, would you intervene if you didn't believe in your God? Not her God, your God.
So would I do an action if I was a different person? I'm not able to answer that question. Like, if you want to change something that's fundamental about me, and then so I don't believe in these gods, what do I believe in instead?
No, but I guess the question
am I just an atheist and all other things the same? And in which case, yes. But
yes, you would intervene.
Yeah, because I'm sure I would come up with another reason for having the value of protecting a family. I think a lot of people do that. I think that it's just a value that exists.
Why do you think that value exists?
Maybe because of the gods. Who knows?
Or maybe it even evolved.
Maybe it's because we're a social species, right?
Yeah.
It's entirely possible for that as well.
We're talking about a predictive model, right? It seems like in every culture around the world, no matter what God you believe in, there is a value of life within the in-group. You know, you might not value the tribe next door, their lives, but within the in-group, it seems like we converge on that value.
Yeah, and that has to do with our social evolution.
Evolution explains this. A belief in Odin doesn't.
That's not supposed to.
Yeah,
like you keep trying to get religion to explain things that are of scientific matters, and that's not what. Like Christians try to do that. Polytheists don't.
If religion
Generally.
doesn't explain anything, what is the use? I think somebody's right. I think the reason that Doug was saying that it's dangerous is because unless your beliefs have some sort of grounding in an objective reality, things can spin out of control, and pretty soon, you know, you're back to chucking virgins into volcanoes.
So any God that's not logically impossible, you would say it's okay to have a default position in believing it?
I think that it's okay to hold that position provisionally.
And what do you mean by that exactly?
Until it is proven wrong.
So you're saying that any God that's not logically impossible, it's okay to have a default position that it exists?
From a philosophical perspective, sure.
Does that, sorry to interrupt, Doug, but just a bit of a question for you, Ocean. Does that apply to empirical things as well, but ones that we haven't observed? Like, is the default position to believe in, like, you know, the teapot around Saturn, even though, like, you know, we could look and try to find it, and it may or may not be there, but is the default position, like, is it reasonable to believe in the teapot?
Right. So therein you have the distinction between whether or not it's philosophically works to believe in it and whether or not it would practically work to believe in it.
So it definitely philosophically works, right?
Right. That does philosophically work, and that's the reason why I said philosophically, yes. When it comes to the teapot, you would want to say, okay, well, this is a physical object. We need to explain how a fucking teapot would be between, I think it's Mars and Jupiter in Burton Russell's example. But
it's a powerful teapot, and it gives my life meaning and fulfillment.
Right. So why do you believe in the teapot? Then you start getting to what's a good reason to believe in the teapot. Have you had any experiences associated with this teapot? That's going to be the first question that I'm going to ask.
I brewed a really strong cup of tea once.
Yeah, so Ocean,
did you pour a really strong cup of tea
answer
from the teapot that's in between Mars and Jupiter, or did you pour a cup of tea
No,
from one of its acolytes on Earth?
It was a spiritual representative of
the teapot.
Of the teapot. Yes.
Right. I mean, and if you actually have that experience, then okay, I'm not going to argue with you too much.
So, but no, Ocean, let's not get off this. If there's a teapot and it's not philosophically or logically incoherent, and if someone has experienced it, are you saying that the default position is to believe that that teapot is real, exists, and is true?
Okay, you're pulling out default position. I don't think there are default positions. So
But is it provisionally okay to hold the belief? Is it like reasonable to provisionally hold it?
I think that you need to have a little bit more than just being philosophically there. One is having an experience associated with it, which is the reason why I have the positions that I do. And I think that a reason why Molly has the positions that she does has to do with experiences. And then in addition to that, there isn't a philosophical absurdity to it.
The teapot has all those requirements.
If you have somebody who has spiritual experiences involving this teapot that is floating around, I think it gets a little bit different because you're talking about something that doesn't have that aspect of being a spiritual entity, because you're talking about something that's empirical.
I think there's a epistemic reason other than the morality reason that Doug is trying to present. I mean, I see what you're trying to say, Doug, but for me, I still want to have the best chance of believing what is true. And I feel like basing my beliefs provisionally on things that are unfalsifiable because I've had an experience or something like that just isn't a good reason to hold the belief. It doesn't give me a good epistemic reason to hold it. And for me personally, I'm not trying to say that somebody else has to do something a different way, but for me personally, it's just not satisfactory to believe things for such bad reasons.
I don't see how you see experience as a bad reason.
Established earlier in the conversation that experiences can be unreliable guides to what is true.
Right, and then we went into solipsism, and we have a fundamental disagreement there. That is, fast forward to the end of that conversation is when we get into disagreements about probability.
But
Doug, you got something on the tip of your tongue. What's up?
Experience, but we did, I think, agree that experience alone in isolation, people have had experiences to come to the conclusion that Yahweh is real and alive and powerful.
Right.
Which you would disagree with. You would say that they were probably deceived. Correct?
Yes. Because, I mean, all right, so let me clarify that for a second, because the experience itself and the communication might be from an entity that exists, but the claims that the entity is making are not of the entity that is making the communication, because the claims that are being made are absurd.
Right, but the experience itself in isolation is not a reliable method to saying, oh, Yahweh is real.
Oh.
So I'm what I think.
Right, but then you look at it through the elimination process of looking at the claims that are made about the entity. You could, for example, in my paradigm, I mean, Christians say this about my gods, but the Yahweh could easily be Loki, because Loki is a god who lies.
I got nothing. You mentioned Loki, and I'm thinking of Avengers now.
Right, no, of course.
Ocean, you could see it on his face. Doug's like,
and those goofy horns. The hell was that?
That's funny. Well, you don't, Doug. You believe once you die, you're dead. That's it, right?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm sorry, that sounded like, okay. No, so then to be in the belief of a Druid or most other religions, that would not work for you. Because you believe once you're gone, you're gone.
But I could be wrong. That's the key point. There could be an afterlife. And if there is, I want to know about it. But I do not want to be duped. I do not want to be fooled. And I don't want to believe in an afterlife for poor reasons, just because I feel like there's an afterlife.
Doug,
I have an interesting response to that.
why do you even say there could be an afterlife, Doug?
Because I'm not omniscient. I don't know everything.
Do you think there could be gods?
I agree with you, Ocean, that I don't believe in contradictory dogs.
Dogs, right.
I do not believe in a god
that's... and therefore do not exist. Fucking pugs, man.
I think we can know that there is no afterlife.
How do you know that?
How?
Because there is no way for it to happen physically based on what we know about the universe now.
But that's
right, but we have no knowledge of where consciousness is seated. So
Doug.
Yeah, wait, let me go. Let's go atheist to atheist here. Do I call you Brenda?
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Okay, Brenda. What you just said is you know that there's no afterlife, and I asked you why or how, and you said because based on the evidence we have now,
there's no way to transfer the information in your brain to some other part of the universe.
How do you know that?
Because we know what the physical laws of the universe are, and it can't be done.
But what if the physical laws of the universe could be changed?
I think that's pretty.
Well, not only that,
that's
so
pretty
the
hypothetical.
atheist just got bold as fuck.
Brenda, you sound like a pretty,
I don't know.
a pretty technical sounding person, and you will have heard of the simulation hypothesis, I imagine. So, like, if we imagine that this world, including like quantum mechanics and general relativity, is being simulated on a super advanced computer, just hypothetically, and you can imagine that you could read the memory state out of that computer and make a copy of it, and then make another instance and run it. Like you make a copy prior to the person dying, and then run it in another simulation. Is that not a logical possibility?
That might be a possibility, but that would kill me.
What would be the life part of this afterlife?
An immaterial consciousness.
Anyone?
An immaterial consciousness.
What would that be?
I don't know.
Okay.
See, I don't think that any of these concepts make any sense. Supernaturalism, spiritualism, immaterialism, these are words that have no reference. They're just gibberish. They don't make any sense to me.
I understand, Brenda, but
it's really, and I've been very patient listening to this long discussion about Harry Potter world. I mean, come on,
Brenda. And again,
that's Ocean you're talking.
Brenda, I agree, and I do not believe there's an afterlife. I think it's highly, 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 highly improbable. But
Hogwarts doesn't take shamans.
But to say categorically that I know that there's no afterlife, to me, it would be dishonest.
Well, the reasoning she gave was super poor to support that as well. So, I mean.
So I'm open to the idea of even a God existing that has been hidden for 13.4 billion years, and maybe next year he'll reveal himself to everyone in a way that there'd be no question that he's real.
So sexist.
But do I think that's going to happen? No. But to say I know that it can't happen, how would I know such a thing?
So just for the purpose of like establishing definitions, when people use the word no here, like for example, when you're using it, Brenda, are you meaning absolute certainty, like in the sense that it's not possible that you could be wrong?
Within the current regime of science, it is not possible for there to exist a means of transferring information in the human brain to some other region of the universe.
500 years from now, we have the technology that we can bring people back to life 100% of the time. But there's a limit on it. Like after, let's say 6 months, it doesn't work. But let's say after 1 month, no problem. We can do it. Okay. So now
I used to work in a hospital. Do you know how fast the human body starts falling apart?
Well, let's just say,
Brenda,
in the future,
really fast,
and reanimate them a month later.
Yes.
You want to call that an afterlife? Go ahead.
So no.
We're not talking about them though.
So 500 years in the future, we have the technology. We can bring people back to life after 1 month. Now we can run experiments up the yin yang with this. So now we have random number generators, Brenda, in hospitals all over the world where we can kill people, bring them back to life, and we can ask them questions when they come back to life. Did you see the random number generator we had on the top of the operating room? Yeah. What was the numbers? Oh, it was 347. Oh, okay. Thank you. And we run that experiment over and over and over and over again. Now we have pretty good evidence that consciousness is not material. Would you agree?
I think that would be compelling, yes.